Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're up to page 66 of volume 4 of Rabbi Avigdor Miller's new translation and commentary of the Mesillat Yesharim, The Path of the Just, originally written by Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. And we are in chapter 22, which is entitled The Explanation of the Trait of a Nava, which is humility. And we are now at part 35. We're now at part 35, which is entitled According to the Time and Place. So we're going to be looking at how to actually apply wisdom, because there are always many variables that have to be taken into consideration depending on the situation the person finds themselves in. If they truly want to try to really walk out the trait of humility in its proper way for the right reasons, not to show people that you're humble. You won't care, you won't care about a great myriad of other things you used to be concerned vainly about before. Rather, you will just be concerned about your service to Hashem, essentially, and you want to make sure that that's as pristine as it possibly can be. So the Mesillat Yesharim says, we have explained that the chief subdivisions of the practice of a Nava, and the details according to all the subdivisions, according to the subject, according to the times and the places. And Rabbi Avigdor Miller says, this means that we would be considered, that what would be considered proper behavior in one place is not the same in another place. What's proper behavior for a great man is not proper behavior for a smaller person. Each person, according to his circumstances, which means that the practice of humility is not a simple matter. It's not like, something that you can just apply with the same measure over everything. It's not like a one-size-fits-all subject. And even by learning all that we've learned until now, it doesn't mean that we know exactly how to apply it. We have to use our minds to see that it's used in the proper place, in the proper time, with the proper person. So we have to always gauge the measure by which we're going to conduct ourselves. We can't just go in with the same rule of measure all the time. It depends on your circumstances, who you're with, even what time of day it is, and what day of the week it is even. And there's so many variables, but you have to use your own wisdom to be able to adjudicate what's appropriate. And there's plenty of material out there to learn, to be able to apply that. This being one of them that we're looking at right here today. The Mesillat Yesharim says, the wise man should listen and add his own instruction to what he heard before, according to Mishlei 1:5, according to Proverbs 1:5. And this is what the Jews do exceedingly well. They build wisdom upon wisdom upon wisdom. And we can see this in the very nature of this particular sefer being a work that was written and then it was extrapolated upon hundreds of years later, it was written, nearly 1,000 years ago. And now in time, that would merge to become a sefer in its own right. And then somebody will come along later and they will do a commentary to the commentary of the work. And so in Judaism, you can have this concept. You can have an original book that's written. You can have somebody publish a book with their commentaries. And then down the track, somebody can also publish another book of commentaries on the source material. And then you can do this again. So there can be a commentary on the commentary on the commentary on the commentary. So they're continually building and merging from this initial wisdom that's been brought down into the world. And so more wisdom over time gets brought down into the world on a particular subject. So that's one of the things I find absolutely fascinating about Judaism and about how they operate. And you can see how holy writings manifest into the world over a period of time. The Mesillat Yesharim, Rabbi Avigdor Miller says, that's always the rule. Whatever you learn is insufficient. You have to take it and enlarge it with your own intelligence. And this is the whole idea of studying a subject. You're learning, and there may come a time where you're able to apply additional insights into the wisdom that you're learning. And you might even be drawing upon other men of wisdom and being able to draw something that you have learnt somewhere else and actually add it to another subject that at the first glance doesn't seem to be related. The Mesillat Yesharim says, this is a certainty. Besides serving Hashem, the midah of anava creates great benefit for us in other matters. So the trait of having humility will create huge benefits for you in other areas of your life that you probably haven't even thought of. The practice of anava will remove from a man's path many stumbling blocks in life and will bring him many benefits and success in life. But this is not why we're doing it. We're not trying to steer onto a course of learning about humility to wield humility as a tool to enable us to achieve certain material gains. But if we approach it in the right manner with the right motive, and we execute it in the right way, depending on where we live, how we're living, and what season we are in our lives, it nonetheless is going to bring great success to our lives, both spiritually and materially as well. Rabbi Avigdor says, because he's a person of good character, humble, polite to everyone, and honors everyone, and doesn't consider himself superior, he will be well liked and successful among people. We should know that he should know that he's doing himself the biggest benefit, even materially. Someone with opposite character traits will have all kinds of troubles and conflicts in life. And you see this with people all the time. You come across people that you become fond of, but you see that nonetheless trouble seems to follow these people wherever they go, and then inevitably controversy. And they'll talk to you about all these bad things that have been done to them over the in their past, and you'll be astounded by some of the things that they share with you. And then as you get to know them, you get to interact with them, you begin to go, okay, I can see how this has been your past, because you're courting the trouble, you're courting the controversy. And so over time you can gradually get to see, okay, this is a person that just, they can't leave well enough alone, and invariably before long there's some conflict or issue that they're dealing with. The author is telling us how good it is to study the subject and to acquire the quality of anava, even with ulterior motives. So let's read that again. The author is telling us how good it is to study the subject to acquire the quality of anava, even with ulterior motives. So, okay, you're studying the subject of humility to perhaps add another string to your bow and impress your friends. You've got kind of a selfish motive in the initial reason why you start learning about the subject, but in the course of learning about it, it will, perhaps your learning will show you that that's what you're actually doing, and you will change your ways in the course of your learning. So even if you start out with not the best motive, maybe you were doing it to impress a girl or impress a peer or someone, and it's the wrong motive. You're kind of trying to keep up with the Joneses, but in the course of learning the subject and availing yourselves of all the best writings on the subject, there is a good chance that you're going to shift your motive along the way to be the right motive. So even if it's a subpar motive, it's okay. Keep learning. This subject isn't forbidden to you if you're coming at it with the wrong motive. But if you continue to learn and you continue to study all the material and avail yourself of all the material that's available, there's a good chance your subpar motive, your bad motive, will turn to be a good motive, and you'll go, okay, I'm gonna try and do this for real. The Mesillat Yesharim says the Anav does not worry much about worldly things. He doesn't get excited. He doesn't get discouraged. He doesn't get angry. And he's not jealous of all foolish things in this world. So, you're not really that fussed about current events, about the state of the globe, about all these wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and diverse places and all these things. You're just like, the mission's still the same, whether it's a time of peace, a time of prosperity, or a time of war. The mission's still the same. The mission doesn't change, unless there's Torah's been outlawed. Perhaps you may have to become a bit more cunning and learn in secret. If it comes to that, maybe it's going to mean that you're going to have to apply a few different things to sort of which will cause you not to probably learn with the freedom that you had before. But ultimately, the whole mission is still the same. You're still here to learn and to apply that learning and improve yourself and have as much of Hashem's wisdom seep into your innermost being as you can, and have your ways be slowly removed and replaced with Hashem's ways in the way you govern yourself. So His ways become your ways, and in effect, you decrease and He increases upon you. And so if your will becomes His will, He'll see to it that whatever your will is, it will see fruition. Because you simply want Hashem's will to be manifest, not your own. And so Hashem says, okay, that's somebody I can work with. That's someone that I'm going to bear down a much favor to. Rabbi Avigdor says, foolish people think that they're important and that they and that they deserve all the luxuries, and therefore they indulge in unnecessary, expensive, and sometimes harmful things. People are looking to fly business class. When they go overseas, they want to kind of have a holiday and kind of, up the sort of degree of the holiday. They might increase the room they stay in to the sort of main room of the hotel. The best room. What's the best room in the hotel? This is going to cost additional money. There might be nothing wrong with them taking a break and just sort of, having a bit of time out, even though, secular holidays aren't really something that we can, end up becoming a part of somebody who becomes immersed in Torah. But nonetheless, if they still need a time to just sort of some downtime, by going to the nth degree and overindulging in that thing and going to the nth degree, that could be money that could have been poured into Keruv organizations or improving somebody else or helping somebody else in their learning. And so then it becomes a little bit sort of, your whole Avodah, your whole service of Hashem can become a little bit murky because you're sort of starting to look to gain pleasures from the world and overindulge from the world. And you rather your pleasures that you should be deriving for mostly pleasures through serving Hashem and learning and applying that learning and doing Hashem's will. Over time, that will intrinsically become something that is more desirous in your heart to do. But it takes work, it takes effort, and it takes time, and it takes falling down and getting up, falling down and getting up, falling down and getting up. You are going to fall down, but you just have to remember, just get up again, dust yourself off, and move forward. And don't be discouraged by how many times you're going to fall down, just as long as you keep getting up after each fall. Okay, so they become excited over small things, jealous of other people, which causes them conflict. Whereas the anav, the humble person, is used to more temperate lifestyle, and therefore he'll be more successful in his physical life. So he doesn't sort of want to live in a really nice place. Okay, there's nothing wrong with the place. There's not rats scurrying around. There's not leaks in the roof or anything like that. But he doesn't want to look to have all the best things and live extravagantly. He lives a very economic lifestyle, and he's happy with that. He's got running water. He's got electricity. The house isn't falling down. It's not like a dump, but it's not like he's not like kind of in sort of Hollywood Boulevard with a huge mansion and telling everybody, look at look at what I'm doing. Look at all the prosperity that comes from being obedient to Hashem. They live in a way that is a lowly way, but they're not they're not looking to be poor. They're not looking to have struggle paying their rent and putting food on the table, but they want to live in a way that is doesn't draw that much attention, and doesn't sort of cause oh wow, look at that nice car that he's driving. The car's in good condition. The car does its job. It's not a Tesla or something like that. The Mesillat Yesharim is telling us the people will gain by being humble in their family life, in their business life, and wherever they go. Mesillat Yesharim is telling us that people will gain by being humble in their family life, in their business life, and wherever they go. And you'll slowly see that there's life isn't a drudgery anymore. Life isn't, you're not kind of battling anymore. You're not surviving anymore. You don't feel like you're surviving anymore. You just feel like you're enjoying life because you're learning the ways of Hashem, and you're beginning to adopt those ways, and it's having a marked change on how you're relating to people, and people are very impressed with your personality. They're impressed with your attitude, and your attitude is becoming infectious, and you are becoming a person that people really look forward to seeing at the workplace. People will say, listen, one of the reasons I like working here is you being here, and I'm being serious about that. I love having our conversations that we have. I love working with you. It's fun. You make me laugh. And in the past, I've had people come and say that to me, which has really been amazing. And one gentleman, and our relationship did become fractured sort of towards the end. It's a long story. But at one point, sort of midway through my period of time at being employed at a particular company, there was a guy I was working with, and he just took me aside one day and he said, listen, my wife has told me that when I come home now, I'm a lot happier, and I'm not annoyed or tired. And I believe that's attributable largely to you, Jason, because when I come to work, you make me laugh. You're bubbly, you're upbeat, and that's really helped me. Now, over time, some things occurred, and the relationship became somewhat fractured, and eventually I left. There was just some things went a certain way, and I realized that okay, this whole thing's kind of gone pear-shaped now. But thankfully, I maintained contact with this particular gentleman, and we're still friends to this day, and the relationship's kind of become restored. And that person went on to leave that job and go into another job as well. And he had a few difficulties, which I think I kind of humbled him a little bit, and things have kind of worked out. But I just wanted to mention that particular individual because there was at one time in the job, he took me aside and he said, listen, I kind of like working here now. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter how mundane your job is. If you've got a good attitude in your workplace, you could be working, shoveling horse manure. You can make it enjoyable. You can make it a good day. But it just depends what the attitude is that you're bringing there. And it all goes back to gratitude. And so gratitude is a huge underlying prerequisite to anava, to being an anav, to being humble. You're not going to achieve genuine humility unless you are actuating the trait of gratefulness. You're truly grateful for being able to walk. You're grateful to be able to see. You're grateful to being generally in a good state of health. You're grateful to have a car, perhaps. You're grateful to have a place to live. You're grateful to be able to learn. The mere fact that you're able to watch this video and sit down and open a sefer and read and learn, huge gratitude should be flowing from you for that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's millions of things to be grateful about. Maybe you've got children, which is something to hugely be grateful about, because not many people have children in the world. They've gone past that age where they can have children, and now they're never going to have children. They're never going to have get to enjoy grandchildren or great-grandchildren. So there's so many things. If you sit down and think about it, you can really get yourself in a very, very positive state of mind, and you can change your attitude to be very grateful and very happy. If you start to cycle through all the things, you're like, geez, I'm really glad I've got this, I'm glad I've got that, I'm glad I've got this. And it can really dig you out of a serious hole, a potential hole that may be coming your way. So you want to be somebody who you want to be able to work with and be around. Furthermore, it says that Mesillat Yesharim, the company of an anav is extremely pleasant. People like to be with an anav, and people are pleased with him. They will come to him and they will seek him out. They will desire to be together with him. Therefore, he certainly will not become angry. A fellow whose arrogance loses his temper, but a fellow who's arrogant loses his temper, but an anav is always able to control himself because he thinks, "Who am I to become angry?" So a lot of times when we become angry, it's because we have maybe an overinflated view of ourselves. We see ourselves as being far more important than we really are, and far more having far more weight than we really do have, and therefore we are offended that a person thinks that that's acceptable, and so we become angry. And we can still be offended. Maybe you have been genuinely offended, but you don't want to give into the trait of anger. You don't want to allow somebody to trigger you to be angry, because essentially to be angry is to be in a state of not having control. And if you don't have control, you're in a state where you can really destroy yourself and do some long-term permanent damage. So you never want to be in a state where you lose control. Nobody likes to not have control. Imagine if you can't control, your breathing. If you can't control where you're walking, your legs get up and decide to walk somewhere you don't want to walk over there, or your hands decide not to work. You want to be in control, and essentially the big danger about anger is that there is loss of control. And by losing control, you can do anything, and there's plenty of people who are residing in prisons all over the world who are there because they lost control and they became too angry and aggressive, and they injured somebody, inadvertently causing their death. Or they're in mental institutions. Maybe they've managed to get out on a technicality. What do they call it? Temporary insanity or whatever. But still, their life is forever changed. You got to live with the fact that you became angry and you struck somebody and you killed them. You didn't plan to murder them. You didn't even plan to be angry. But what they did just really pushed your buttons, and now somebody has died at your hands. So you want to avoid becoming angry. A humble person, being humble and being angry aren't sort of two things that can commune together. However, if you are zealous, and you are zealous for Hashem's sake and not your own, then certainly there can be situations where you can appear, from an outsider's perspective, to appear to be angry and to have movements that appear violent. And if this is for the sake of Hashem, then that's absolutely a valid form of that type of behavior. But inwardly, the person's actually calm. The person's actually, their blood pressure hasn't gone up, but in many ways they're putting on an outer facade of aggression because of the dishonor that is being brought upon their king. And so they can't let it go. They have to go, okay, this has to be addressed. If it means I've got to raise my voice, if it means I have to, come into a courtyard with a whip and, strike the whip around and knock over some tables to make a point, then I will do it. But inwardly, the person is in control. Little bit off the track there, but let's get back onto it. So a fellow who's arrogant loses his temper, but an Anav is always able to control himself because he thinks, who am I to become angry? The Mesillat Yesharim says, and he will not come to any quarrel. He keeps away from quarrels because of this quality. He does everything quietly, everything with tranquility. How happy and fortunate is the person who gains this quality of Anava. And we'll leave it there. Takes us to page 68. Up to part 36. The next topic is Anava is beyond wisdom. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found that enjoyable. More so, I hope you found it informative, and that it maybe gave you a few ideas of how you can perhaps approach certain situations. Maybe that in the past you've looked at differently. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Hashem willing, bye for now.